at all. I am going, there we go.
I love how when the voice comes on, it gives you the option to just exit the meeting. It's awesome.
It's true. It's so true. Okay,
Don't
I'm going
even
to
think
present
about it,
the,
Shane.
can everyone see my screen all right?
Looks great.
Okay. Awesome. Yes. Listen, it is a pleasure to be here. Taylor, I can't thank you enough. I'm Tara Spalding. I'm the managing director at BoomStartup Accelerator. And this means so much to me to share what's going on with this community, because I think we have a really good overlap. In fact, Taylor mentioned earlier that I'm actually on vacation. So that's okay. This is just not my standard black wall professional background. So I appreciate you guys just accepting me for how I am, and possibly hearing my kids in the background too. But with no further ado, I wanted to walk through and explain what is BoomStartup and why is it important. And basically we are an accelerator, but it's a very different approach accelerator. And it's primarily because 90% of startups fail within the first 3 years. You know, people are like, it's product market fit, wasn't enough funding and all this such. But the root cause of all that is that there wasn't enough guidance. Midday Connect is certainly about that sort of guidance and sharing and collaboration of storytelling. That's how come there's always these amazing speakers. And it's also about a very safe and comfortable environment. And that too is something that we're emulating at BoomStartup. But the thing that we do it's slightly different than Midday Connect is that we're putting out a really long welcome mat for founders and entrepreneurs to get to the doors of funding and decide if they in fact want to proceed or not, because not all companies are fundable and not all entrepreneurs are going to want the funding because it comes at different costs. So in a nutshell, if you've heard of BoomStartup before, that's because it's around for 11 years. It was founded in 2010. It was a traditional accelerator model where it was located in Salt Lake City, Utah. And they did initially fund companies who were accepted into the program with set allotments for performance, etc. And it was managed, in fact, by a fund. However, the founders and the managers, leaders of BoomStartup had this epiphany of like, hey, let's put it more online and leverage platforms to, in fact, expand our reach and also get a little bit more expansive on the companies we're serving. During COVID, without any sort of leadership, et cetera, the BoomStartup platform, in fact, helped over 500 founders assess and provide resources to their business automatically because of how the platform has worked. Assure bought BoomStartup and is now basically investing into the founder community, et cetera, because they also see the need for this sort of diversification. And so I came in January of 2021. I have the objective of reaching over 1,000 founders this year and give them an aha moment about their business. And so far, we're beating expectations. So what is this aha moment? Well, I'm an entrepreneur. I've had several businesses myself, and like most of you on this call as well, and they're hard. But having, like I said before, communities such as like Midday Connect work together and support each other, this is where you can break through these sorts of barriers with that sort of educational and community sort of ecosystem. And with our platform, et cetera, we'll help you figure out opportunities and flaws, and when the timing is right, we'll help you go through funding as well. We serve a very diverse community. This is really exciting because it's really an opt-in sort of an accelerator. We don't have that sort of like pre-screening. And we're also seeing participation around the world as well with just various sorts of, infrastructure and space. And it's primarily because, we're just looking at our accelerator program is much different than how the traditional accelerator works. And as you can tell just by this, again, we're just really looking at programs that people opt into, participate on their own because they acknowledge this is a weakness of their business and this is what's holding them back. We do have a funding program. There is a demo day and all that good stuff, and we will be kicking that off in a couple of months. But what really is helpful are the programs beforehand, and I'll go through it in the difference. So we measure success because we provide these learning opportunities that are growing revenue, that are optimizing business spends. For a certain subset that do want to pursue funding, this is where we help them out with preparing them for funding, such as, your data room, the components, the checklist that you need to do for your business. We also help by providing SPVs. And in fact, we do have like a quasi syndication, sort of program for funding itself. And we will in fact organize funding up to $100,000. So, just to repeat, we're just a funding oriented sort of program, tracking the business success, tracking what's working in the metrics. And we do have flexible open investments. There's 4 main programs, and this is where it gets fun for Midday Connect. Our Pitch Up is the pitch competitions. You're going to see an announcement about that very soon if you're interested. Also, Open Up is an ongoing rolling, platform with that sort of assessment. Our Rise Up is where we get those tight, unique ecosystem connections going, and I'll dive into this in a second. The Amplify Up is what we call the funding path. In Pitch Up, we already hosted one. There were almost 200 companies that applied. These were the winners to the program. It's fantastic. Like, for example, Utiva came from Nigeria. That won one of our categories. Like, it's just really cool to see, the diversity of participants. The Open Up program, these are drop-in remote sort of programs where there's one-on-one mentors. And in fact, we have several mentors on this call. I want to give a shout out to Nancy Meyer. We have Spencer Lovelace on this call, and also Keith Wing. Keith is in fact teaching an Open Up workshop at the end of this month about business KPIs. Open Up is totally free, and it's just really encouraging. If you are someone that has like that sort of skill set, especially if you've taught at previous Midday Connects, this can also be a great opportunity for you to extend your brand into the startup venture if those are your target audience that you look to serve. The Rise Up programs, these are what we call 1 week remote sprints. And the sprints are usually on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday for between 60 and 90 minutes long per each day, and they're 100% virtual. These are paid for programs that are paid by the entrepreneur who participate. And these programs just are really around homework, where the expert creates the homework, distributes the homework, teaches about how it solves a specific business problem, and also gets the entrepreneur on the path. Brenda Anderson is also a Midday Connect member. She just pinged me. I'm so proud of her. She's closing a customer deal instead of being on here, but she can give you a testament as to the experience as an entrepreneur in the Rise Up program. And I'll show you some of the topics, but for example, these are a really great way to extend a workshop into accountability for the entrepreneurs. Taylor asked me to write a couple of examples as to how this really helps. Terry Tito is the CEO of a company called WoomGo. I believe she's also participated in several of these programs. And she basically did a live pitch on Clubhouse, which led to a fantastic introduction after she went through our giving a 3-minute conversational pitch Rise Up sprint, where you don't have slides. You just need to talk and address your audience in a conversation to engage. And in fact, she pitched a heck of an investor and got all these follow-up meetings set up because of it. And she's just such a strong contender. Additionally, we ran a Rise Up sprint about building a credible investment ask. And another one of our founders had the epiphany that in fact, he doesn't have to ask for 1.5 million out of the gate. And that if like we can pull in $250,000 that he runs an experiment, then it actually justifies the next 1.25 million. And, you know, it's those sorts of applications when you're approaching funding of like how to do things intelligently instead of biting off too much more than you can chew. And, you know, especially at the pre-seed and seed round, you know, it's just, it shows the amateur approach. So we have a lot of examples. The Rise Up experiences are in fact speaker paid. Speakers earn a pretty significant portion of the ticket sales for participating. And this too is an excellent way to start integrating if that's what you're into. And then Amplify Up is our investment program. Like I mentioned before, you know, we're going to leverage Assure's SPVs so that the investment round isn't closed. In fact, it's open. So if you're on this call, you're an accredited investor. The SPV allows us to cut down the initial check size down to $5,000 instead of like a $25,000 or $50,000 check size, which if you're an accredited investor, you know what I'm talking about, of it being difficult, but also allows you to get in very, very early on some rising stars that have gone through our Open Up, our Rise Up, as well as our quarterly survey programs, so that in fact, you know, they're proven. So this is our fourth and final program. So quickly moving on, our July programs, we're just announcing it this morning. Spencer Walker was mentioning about, you know, how we customize the emails according to the recipient and their business needs. Well, here's everything in just one fell swoop. We often run between 6 and 10 programs a month. And again, it's because it's opt-in. And, you know, that's part of our whole paradigm, just like, you know, the Midday Connect. I'm going to be, in fact, the expert for the hiring and compensation strategy. I have a couple of founders joining me for next week's event. And this is really targeting the solopreneur that's trying to transition from, you know, contractor work to, you know, building a team, which, you know, is absolutely critical to get ready for funding. Like it can't just be yourself that gets the funding. And so there's a really fun 3-day program that I'll be heading up next week. We're also going to do a detailed explanation as to how BoomStartup provides SPV services and how this helps early stage founders, you know, organize their pre-seeds, etc., or seed rounds very cleanly so it doesn't affect your cap table. And we'll be going into detail on that. Then we also have Bill Retton, who is part of Startup Bootcamp, as well as Selena, go through measuring product market fit for growth. And that's also going to be a really interesting thing because product market fit is great, but if you can find and leverage the information that you're collecting and use that to basically project what sort of growth rate, this is very important, not only for investors, but also for your budget and your financial plans. We also have Darren running a cyber risk assessment where he's going to take you through 20 questions, and based on how you answer this question, he's going to tell you the exposure and risk that you have for your company, and all company types, ages, stages are invited into this. But it's, you know, again, really cool hands-on sort of workshop. Tim Cooley, whom I know has presented here a couple of times, in fact, he's going to give a workshop, a 3-day workshop on changing your pitch deck into something that's really investable. And that's going to be amazing, especially because of his experience and his connections. It's also a really great way to get introductions to investors as well. And then, as I mentioned before, Keith is going to be doing choosing your business KPIs. And we all know the importance of KPIs. And, you know, Keith, if you guys haven't met him, he's the most energetic, enthusiastic person. He comes from the world of gaming. And so because everything there is statistically driven, it's just part of his DNA. And he just has this really cool repetitive experiment process to hit those KPIs. And anyways, I'm not going to spoil it, but Keith is going to close out July with some serious fireworks. So outside of that, joining our community is easy. Basically, you just got to sign up for a newsletter and opt in to any of these events. We ask for you to just stay committed. We ask for you to give us consistent updates, at least on a quarterly basis as a founder. And then we do ask for open feedback. This is really important, actually, at all levels, from investors, experts, mentors, as well as founders. And then to be accountable for your actions, like, hey, I'm going to do this, and do it. And there's our ask. So our promise is to connect and guide others to encourage startup success. This is more important than funding. And these are learning opportunities in safe environments. And I'm really hoping to rewrite the book on what is an accelerator and how do accelerators measure success to build up to those funding events with this sort of purpose. All right, and that is it, folks.
Tara, that was awesome. Thank you. And everybody feel free to unmute yourself and ask some questions. Tara, what has been the most, or some of the impactful outcomes that you've seen in each one of those different programs, the Pitch Up, Open Up, Rise Up, and Amplify Up? Can you give us some examples of like when someone came in, what their situation was and what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a lot of people coming in all the time. It's just, where do they fall off? And what I mean by that is, like, they'll come in and they'll start doing like the quarterly business survey, and then they just fall off on the product market fit or market adoption or packaging, because they're just not there yet. And when we do that, when we see that happen, then we send them like, hey, I think you need to attend Bill's or Max's program, basically honing your packaging, honing your product testing, etc. And so it's just this really neat, soft way of saying, based on what you shared with us is how we recommend. Our first program that we ever ran was about how to communicate your story as a founder through video. Ironically, we got a group of basically internal innovators / investors in the healthcare space to attend, and then they identified that they had a massive problem about their clarity of their vision and how they wanted to be perceived. Ironically, our workshop all of a sudden became a discovery process, where then the person who ran this group led the charge of like, let's clean it up. And they're leveraging our videographer that was our expert to further now communicate and capture their vision and create it into a video that they can show throughout their organization. And so these workshops, when they're expert led, can really do some root cause problem analysis. And we just don't know where it's going to go, but it's always excellent at the end. And part of the ask, Taylor, is that for the people who are participating in here, the people that have those worksheets or have those sorts of templates that are geared toward, discovery, problem solving for the startup space, come and talk to me about becoming an expert on teaching, on becoming a mentor, etc. Because if you're the type of person that shows up for this sort of event, and this, is part of your character, very likely we're going to do very well and communicate and expand your reach into the Boom Startup community across the globe. And that's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
What kind of involvement does Rob Kuhns have in the program?
He doesn't. Actually, he runs a group called Glassboard Technology, and it's a software company. John Richards and Rob Kuhns are very strong supporters of mine, but they know that I'm the next chapter. I'm not the final chapter. There's going to be another person after me taking over, but yeah.
Shane's an alumni of a Boom iteration at one point, Tara.
Really?
Class of 2013. Love Rob Coons.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, he's so busy right now running basically a software company that he just doesn't have much time at all for us.
Yeah.
Totally good.
Hallie has her arm up, and then Sia does as well, her hand up.
Hi, Tara. So great to reconnect with you. I
Yes.
missed you for months. And congratulations. My question comes from our breakout room. Really fascinating conversation today. Thanks to the team who were in. Gave me a lot to think about in terms of so many of us have essentially repackaged ourselves. And, you know, let me reiterate about iterations, right? When we're talking fractals, when we're talking about subunits and all the success points that it takes to really make a change, we have to keep on reinventing ourselves. So when I hear startup, I'm thinking, but wait, I'm starting up all over again. So how can breakout and moving on through and up work for someone like me who can give back a lot, but also right now is back in the revamping, back in the restaging process, and needs help all over again to start up yet again?
Yeah, understood. Traditionally, accelerators work like, you know, the program lasts 6 months. You have to get accepted to get into the 6-month program. And then each month addresses a specific aspect because of economies of scale and the probability for success. This is where we're completely different, and it's drop-in, opt-in. You can take a open up workshop and a rise up sprint at the same time, you know, on 2 different topics, because you know that can help you personally or with your company growth. And the thing is that our quarterly business survey is actually the secret sauce, because it's our ability to say like, well, what happened in the last 90 days? And then based on the trueness of your answers, then our recommendations on what to do next is cleaner, is more accurate. Like my favorite comment is garbage in, garbage out. So don't put in garbage and you won't get garbage back. So does that answer your question, Hallie? And it's great to see you again too.
So in part, yes. Thinking years ago, participating in the Core to Concept contest that Stoll Reeves had done. I'd love to reconnect with you about that as the new version of the old ideas, because things have come anew that way too. But also just thinking about SCORE and SBA, it is so wonderful that you're filling in that niche where it's not just small business, it's innovators, entrepreneurs, and inventors who are also needing that same kind of boost up, but from a different vantage point. Wondering how, if at all, you've connected with the SBA programs like that.
Yes, I have.
Let's talk more. Thanks.
Okay.
Sia, do you have a question?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Thanks for the space, Taylor. And Tara, I'm bummed out that I left before we could get a real-to-real picture for Topgolf when we both happened to be mentioned that day. So that's my bad. That's my bad. Nevertheless, you mentioned earlier, and I'm glad you specifically highlighted this one, a Nigerian startup. And as an immigrant, I'm always excited to see the global reach and the global impact of the Utah startup scene and startup ecosystem in general. And I'm just curious, just practically, A, how that came about, and B, what you saw in them and how that affects you being able to help them in their journey from a distance. Because little known to the outside world, outside of Africa, fintech a lot more though, because they're very prominent, but the Nigerian tech scene and the Nigerian startup scene is incredibly vibrant, to the point where myself as a South African tend to be very jealous of that. But how do you find them? How's working with them internationally? And what does this look like for you in the future of looking for more international startups, but more specifically, more African startups? What is it that you looked for?
No, see, and I'm so glad you mentioned this, because like, honestly, I've had the wonderful opportunity through Boom to participate in micro ecosystems around the globe. And like, I can explain some really big picture, hairy, audacious goals that I have for the program. But the thing is the fundamentals will not change. because this is an opt-in program, and because I will always have a component of free, where the scorecard is free. Like you can do the quarterly business survey for free and get recommendations for free. Secondly, I do not force people to pass certification by only going through the Boom program. This allows the opportunistic participation by anyone who wants to commit with grit. I think that is how come we have such a nice global presence. Oh, and PS, everything that I do has a virtual component to it. Like I don't just do 100% on site. I'm not running that like Salt Lake, accelerator program anymore. It's all online. And, this is like super duper inclusive. And it's truly judging people on their ability to follow through. And that's how come that's part of our 4 core values. I will never say like, well, you got to do it Boom's way or else it doesn't count at all, because honestly, it's all about business growth. And that's how come I think we have such a strong contingency globally, as well as people who have been under-resourced because they've been in the minority or, just didn't have that sort of education or established network. And that's how come I'm here today asking for people like yourselves, if you want to participate as a speaker, as an expert, as a mentor, open arms, man. And I'm going to put you through a ringer. I'm going to ask you about your expertise and all, but this is what we need.
Awesome. Thank you for your answer. And you're probably in good company, because Y Combinator at some point realized, oh, wait, we can just make startup school free and open to everyone. And then we decide from people that follow through that program, if they actually had the follow-through ability and grit, that they're worthy of being admitted to YC at some point, because they've actually gone through the startup school, which is completely free online. So probably not a terrible model.
No, but you got to have that infrastructure basically, and the ability to track, and the trust.
That's awesome. Thanks for the question, Sia. Thanks, Hallie, for the questions. Typically, we'll wrap things up around now unless additional questions are held within the group. So if there are some questions, speak now, unmute yourself. Otherwise, we'll give Tara a big thanks.
Taylor, I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Karthik.
Tara, do you tend to have mostly software companies go through the program? Like, I'm a biotech startup. Does it matter what industry you're in?
No, it doesn't. There's easily 14 in their top, industry sets, and we have everything, of course, from technology, but we also have like service and service companies, marketing companies, travel and transportation. Like it's all various. The reason why is because we're focused on business formation and those sorts of like funding principles. Like how to, for example, I mentioned before, one of our sprints was about building a credible investment ask. That's not industry specific, right? That's not about like search engine optimization or, e-commerce engine optimization or anything like that. It's a very applicable and open sort of a program.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions for anyone, from anyone? Okay, Tara, we'll let you get back to vacation. Thanks so much. This is awesome. Really appreciate your time, and look forward to jumping into some of the Boom Startup programming. So thanks for sharing. This is great.
This was
Hey,
wonderful.
Taylor, just while everyone's jumping off.
Yeah, Jeff.
All right, did you put your email in the chat, or what's the best way to get a hold of you?
I will do that right now. Great. I love this idea. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's so funny. I looked up your name on LinkedIn and I couldn't find you, Tara.
There is no U in my last name. It's Spalding, Tara Spalding.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, everybody can copy that email address. Tara, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a great one.
Have a good vacation. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.